This video is the top 10 Luffy fights in One Piece. Top 10 Luffy fights in One Piece. Alright, so at number 10, I have Luffy versus Arlong. See, Luffy versus Arlong was a good fight. Um, Luffy wasn't playing games at that point. When it came to Luffy versus Arlong, Arlong was fucking with Nami and messing her life up. Luffy needed her around so that she could steer the boat in the right direction, um, let them know when like waves and like all kind of extra stuff was gonna happen on the ocean because Nami's a navigator. He needed her, and he not just that, but he cared about her too. And he said, don't cut your arm, don't stab yourself. We'll handle that business for you. He was fucked up. He used you for years and other things, and he enslaved your people. Essentially, enslaved your people in Kokoyaksi village. We're gonna like make the shit right. And him and all his guys, Zoro, Sanji, and Usopp pulled up on Arlong Park. And then Luffy was trying to, fight Arlong. Arlong threw him in the water, but that didn't stop Luffy. That didn't stop him. He got out of that water. And he said, I'm here to like fuck your ass up. He started to fight him, and he broke his teeth. He got, bit by Arlong and other things, and then he like smashed Arlong into like the building, and he saw all the shit that Nami like wrote, like all the like charts of like the sea, the maps of the sea, because she's a navigator, so she maps the sea. And he was like, "You're just using her for her ability to do that. She's a slave here. I'll destroy all this shit so she can be free." And Luffy kicked all that shit out of the building, and Arlong was like, "No, you can't be doing shit like that. That's not right." But Arlong, got his head smashed in the ground. Gum battle axe. He said he's put his feet all the way up in the sky. And he said, "Boom!" Like cracked that bitch's skull basically, and sent him into the ground. And that was cool. Cause he freed a whole village, in the East Blue, and it was like not a like main village or anything. But these people were like fucked up for a long time, and Nami was the one like really, you know, he was the one who was really going through it, and Luffy was like, "That's my girl, that's my navigator. No way, she's coming with me after I whoop your ass and everything else." And that's what ended up happening. And he defeated Arlong, and Arlong went to, I don't know, some prison somewhere, I guess. But number 9 is Luffy versus Moriah. Luffy versus Moriah. So Moriah is one of the 7 warlords of the sea, right? Um, I know other people may like Moriah more than me. But he is weak as fuck, y'all. In that arc though, it was basically his area. See, Thriller barks a whole island, or a moving ship that is like the size of an island. So like Moria had the advantage as far as the environment goes, and he was keeping people there. Like it's dark on that island too. So well, at certain times, most of the time. So like people were there because their shadows had got taken away from Moria, and then they would go hide in like the buildings that were on the island, so that they wouldn't die when they went out into the sunlight. Um, Luffy was there to help Brook out. Brook is one of his guys. Brook is his musician. So Brooks is a musician, right? Um, and Luffy is like, we'll help you get your shadow back. And he thought it was gonna be easy, of course, but then he got on to the mark and found out that Gecko Moria had the ability to steal shadows, and he was like, "Oh, fuck, now my shadow's stolen, and my crew got their shadow stolen." So then Luffy was like, "Now we have to like really fight to get our shadows back, or else when the sun comes up, we'll all die. We'll become dust. We'll disintegrate. We'll become nothing." And they were on a time crunch. Luffy ended up going into a new form called Nightmare Luffy. During that time, and he fought against Oars too before that, and then he fought Moria to like get him to like get all the shadows out of him because he had the shadow fruit. So he takes the shadow, Moria takes the shadow. and he puts it. He can either put it into like a dead body, or he can keep it for himself to power his body up and make him like stronger, bigger, and all kind of stuff. And he turned himself into a giant because he absorbed like all the shadows on the island. And Luffy was like, I'm gonna smash him and bash him, and he did. Gear second, gear third, and he went all out to like make sure that motherfucker like released all the shadows. The shadows came out of Moriah's mouth, and he was like, ah. And that's what happened. They came out of his mouth, and everybody had their shadow back. And when the sun came up, they were all right. But Luffy like did like he went like hard during that fight. He was like, not at death's door, but he was tired, very tired after that fight. But number 8 is Luffy versus Enel. See, that fight's important because they went up to Sky Island, right? Because people were like, "Oh, Sky Island don't exist" and other things. But then they found out about the Doctor from a guy named Mont Blanc Cricket. Mont Blanc. Because he's a descendant of Blanc Blanc Nolan, Nolan the liar, because it was a book. And they were like, he was like, "Yo, I'm trying to find Sky Island because people try to like fuck around and say that place don't exist. But I know my ancestor wasn't actually a liar. People play games with his dick, essentially, and like try to play games and stuff. Uh, it's a yeah. Now they went up the knockout stream and they got to Sky Island and they come to find out that this guy called Enel was ruling over them, but he was a tyrant. He the people up in Sky Island named their like ruler God, God's shrine. That's where Enel ruled over. But he took that from a guy named Godfall, who was an old man with a beard who like rode around on a fucking bird horse thingy called Pierre. And it came time for like all kind of people to like pay and other things. In Nell's words, he was gonna like destroy all that and then go to another place. He was gonna use the gold from Shandor to get to a higher place, basically, another place, in One Piece world. He was just there to mine the gold and other things and use the people there and other stuff. And he was doing that. Gonfall, Robin, Zoro, and Wiper all like they failed to take him down. As he has the Rumble fruit, he has a Logia type devil fruit that is powerful, fast, speed, and tremendous power come from that devil fruit. As he has the ability to turn his body into lightning and summon lightning, to like destroy people. However, Enel Denver accounted for that Luffy was a guy who could like handle all that extra stuff, as he's made of rubber. So Enel hit him with like volts, and then he hit him with 1,000,000 volts, and Luffy was still standing. And Luffy was like, "I got you." But the thing that made the fight a little bit difficult was Enel had mantra, which is code for, and it's the Skypion's way of saying observation hockey. So he was able to use observation hockey to dodge Luffy's moves. But even so, Luffy was able to like run up Giant Jack with the golden ball in his hand and ring the bell of Shandor, because Wiper was like the flame of Shandor, we're still here. Let them know down below that we're still doing next. And Luffy was like, go, golden rifle, and smashed him into the fucking bell and ringing it. And that was also like some foreshadowing for people who know One Piece and other things, that Luffy was there and he was freeing people and all kind of stuff. You know, and number 7 is Lucci and Luffy versus Lucci. The second fight, the one on Egghead. When they came there and they were like, we got orders to come here and see Vegapunk, but you're here, and I don't know why you're here, but you're probably trying to go after the One Piece, and that's not cool. As they have fought before, Luffy and Rob Lucci have fought on another occasion, and that's on the list. You'll be surprised where I have it though, on my list. But he got there and he was like, okay, well, they were like, you shouldn't fight him. He's now an emperor of the sea. At that point, Luffy has Gear 5 and all kind of stuff. like hockey amplifications, conquers hockey to like he's an emperor of the sea. He ain't that little boy that don't know that stuff. You know, um, yeah, and Lucci's like, well, I still want to try that because I myself have an awakening. I think I can still like be on par with and hang with Gear 5 Luffy. I want to see what the fuck that does. We fought before and I lost the last time, so I want to like see what the fuck this boy can do. And Luffy was like, okay, sure. You know, he went Gear 5, and then, you know, the rest was history. You know, Luffy basically won that. And won that pretty easily. Lucci is not as powerful as people think. He is He is more powerful than other characters, but not Luffy. And people that are like Luffy tier. So strange. But number 6 is Luffy versus Magellan. Luffy versus Magellan. That was when Luffy went to Impel Down and he fought against Magellan. Magellan's the warden of Impel Down. The warden. So he holds down there and makes sure, you know, people don't escape the prison and other stuff if they try to. He has the venom fruit. So like his venom's very toxic. That shit kills people, y'all. When it touches your skin, it burns your skin, it erodes your skin. It like, you know, corrodes your fucking skin. So Luffy was fighting against a guy like that in his like prison essentially, because he runs that prison. And Luffy's like, oh fuck, you know, I don't know if, you know, I can hold down, but I have to because I'm trying to get to my brother. At that point in the story, Luffy was like, I have to find my brother, I have to get him out of here before they try to execute him. Magellan was fighting against him, and he used like Hydras to fight against him. Poison Hydras. Luffy had second gear, third gear at that point. You know, Conqueror's Haki wasn't even like, you know, it was something that he had, but he didn't like know how to use it or like to emit it, how to emit it from himself yet. So Luffy was doing that, and Magellan was, you know, using his devil fruit. He hit Luffy with that devil fruit, and essentially Luffy lost that fight. Um, but in losing that fight, Luffy learned that, you know, there's people out there that are stronger than him, or that was like, you know, a little bit of a sign that, you know, he's gonna have to work even harder than he's already have to like keep what he has, because if he doesn't, then, you know, the journey's gonna end. You know, and he almost lost to Magellan. You know, Bone Clay had to save him and take him down to Ivankov to get him the hormones he needs to like keep on living, because that he's toxic, yo. um Number 5 though on the list is Luffy versus Doflamingo. Luffy versus Doflamingo was a great fight as well. So Luffy met Law during Punk Hazard, and Law was like, you know, we have to, you know, destroy these smile factories and smile and match factories. Um, so, oh, smile and sad, my bad. So that, you know, Kaido's plan to like create these, you know, devil fruits and have a whole crew, a whole alliance full of like devil fruit users. Because these are artificial devil fruits, y'all. That's cool. There was a factory on Dressrosa and on Punk Hazard. So Law destroyed the one on Punk Hazard, and there was one on Dressrosa. So Law and Luffy are on Dressrosa at some point, and they have to fight out against Doflamingo. Law had like beef with Doflamingo because Doflamingo killed his brother. Um, he's like fucked in the head because like Doflamingo is a celestial dragon. Um, but like his parents were like, you know, we have to go down to the slums to live with the people. And Doflamingo didn't like that. He liked that being royalty and having people he calls to him and other stuff. That's why he took over Dressrosa and other things. He was like, you know, people should heed calls to me. I'm a conqueror. I have conqueror's hockey. I know what the fuck to do. You know, I know how to lead and other things. Not even that, but he just likes to, you know, dictate to people what to do, and, you know, even like, you know, pulling people's string, you know, with his strength fruit, you know, making them do shit that they won't want to do. You know, he gets amusement from shit like that. People's like, you know, sorrows and pains and all this extra stuff. He laughs at shit like that. So like Luffy had like beef with him because of that. He's like, you're fucking with the people here on this island. I don't like shit like that. So we're gonna have to run hands. And he was running hands. Law was with him during the beginning of the fight, but then Law lost an arm, and then he had to fight against him. At that point, then Luffy had to break out what's called Gear 4 Bounce Man. And he broke out Gear 4 Bounce Man on Doflamingo, and the fight was more even. But at that point, Luffy was also like, I can only keep this for him for like 10 minutes. So he was fighting against him. Doflamingo brought out his awakening and turned everything around him to strength. And Luffy was having a hard time with that. But then Luffy, he took too long in that form, and he had to like wait another 10 minutes for his hockey to come back. And then when that happened, he went into Gear 4 again and eventually defeated Doflamingo with the King Kong gun, or I think that's what he used, King Kong bazooka or whatever, and smashed his fucking face into the ground, like put him into the fucking ground. Broke his glasses that he wears, and nobody's ever done that shit to Doflamingo, so they're like, oh shit, Monkey D. Luffy won that fight. It was cool. And he also freed Dressrosa as well. And that brings me to number 4. Luffy versus Crocodile. See, Luffy versus Crocodile. Um, Luffy versus Crocodile. Crocodile was heeding calls to taking over a kingdom called Alabasta. See, Alabasta is a kingdom that is, a desert kingdom. So Crocodile wanted to rule over it. One, because he has a Sansan fruit, and two, because he was after an ancient weapon called Pluton, and he believed that that place was in, or that weapon was in Alabasta. He had a girl called Miss All Sunday, or AKA Nika Robin, with him, and she know how to read a thing called poneglyphs and shit. So she was able to read these poneglyphs, and no, and she was able to do that. Um, so he kept her by him, and they were, on the island trying to find the poneglyph that talked about Pluton, and he was like, okay, we're gonna do that, and I'm gonna rule over this nation. I already took their water, I already took over their kingdom. These people will have to bow down to me, as I'm the Desert King Crocodile, Mr. Zero Baroque Works. And Luffy fought against him not just one time, but on 3 occasions. So the first exchange, Luffy, lost, handily. He had no experience fighting against a Logia Delver Fruit user, except Smoker, up until that point. And he didn't quite understand how he's going to fight Crocodile, so he got buried in the ground. But Nico Robin saved him. Then the second time, he went to Alabarna, where everybody was at, and he was fighting him there. Pell like flew him in, and he had water with him, and that's when Water Luffy came into picture. Water, he drank water, and he had water in his body, as he knew Crocodile was able to dehydrate people and basically absorb all the moisture and all life and turn it into dust. As that's what his power allows him to do. So Luffy was like, okay, cool. I'm gonna, you know, run that fade with him and hit him. Because, like, now that he has water in his system and he shot Crocodile with water, the sand solidifies more. So then he can't, like, disperse in the sand anymore because it's like it has water in it. So it's like more condensed and stuff. So it's like, he's getting hits off. He's like, bam, 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 bam. And, at that point, Luffy thought he was going to win. But Crocodile still had the ability to, like I said, absorb all the moisture in the area. He dehydrated the whole, like, he disintegrated the whole, like, palace, basically. And at that point, he grabbed Luffy's throat and, like, absorbed all the water out of him, all the moisture out of him. And Luffy was almost dead. But there was a bottle of water that went into the air, or a barrel of water, and it hit him, and he got hydrated again, and he went and he found him in the like tunnels of Alabasta, and he was running fade with him there. And in there, that's when the real fight happened, to where Luffy had a chance to win. He was fighting for Nico Robin, he was fighting for his crew, fighting for Alabasta. And Vivi, because he wanted her to like rule over Alabasta, or just live a good life and other things. He didn't want to see her, lose her kingdom and other things. So he was like, I have to have to defeat this bastard, and he kicked him up into the sky after Crocodile tried to poison him with the hook. And that didn't do nothing. Luffy was like, I have the resolve to, like, I have to beat this guy now. I already lost him twice already. I can't lose to this bitch again. So he kicked that bitch up into the, like, fucking sky and, like, punched him through the bedrock. And Crocodile got defeated. And then when he was defeated, it rained in Alabasta again, and that's how you knew, Luffy freed Alabasta from Crocodile's tyranny. And it was a good, like, fight and everything. But number 3 is Luffy versus Katakuri. So Katakuri is the first commander of the Big Mom Pirates. Luffy had fought against Katakuri's brother, Cracker, and he made work of him. Not easily though, but he did. He got him the fuck out of there, y'all. It's the truth. You watch the anime and stuff. He got him the fuck out of there. And Katakuri though was known as a guy who never lost a fight. He never got put on his back, is what Brule said. And he was like, my brother won't lose. He never loses. He won't be put on his back. He won't allow that to happen. He'll beat Monkey D. Luffy. And Luffy was like, okay, he was fighting him in the mirror world where Brule loses. And he was like, Katakuri was like, don't disturb this fight. We're gonna throw hands, me and Straw Hat. Um, I won't let him like fight against our mom or anything like that. He's weak and like he can't even beat me. And it like seemed that way for a little bit. Luffy was having a hard time because Katakuri has future sight, and at this point, Luffy's observation haki wasn't good enough to see into the future like Katakuri's was. See, Katakuri could see like 6 seconds into the future, where Luffy could only dodge attacks. Basic observation haki at that point. But Luffy ended up learning how to like blossom his hockey and learn future sight during the fight, and he started doing that, and he started getting hits off and other things. But Katakuri is also a conqueror user, and they had a conqueror's clash, and he knocked his sister out, and Luffy knocked out everybody else that was in the vicinity. And that was a great exchange of power and other things, and Luffy ended up having to use not just Bounce Man, but he had to go into Snake Man against Katakuri to be faster. So basically, he could bypass the future sight. Basically, essentially, if he's fast enough, like Katakuri, even if he can see it coming, he can't dodge it because it's too fast. And that's what happened. Luffy started, spamming Snake Gatling and King Cobra, and like Katakuri was getting hit. Katakuri was like, I don't, I can't see. Like, I mean, I can see it, but I can't, I can't do nothing about this shit. I'm gonna get hit. And he started getting hit. But then, he was still there for the fight and other things. He smashed Luffy's head into the ground, and then, Luffy smashed him. But they got up, and Luffy was standing there, and Katakuri was standing there. And then Katakuri was like, you know what? This boy is like doing extra stuff. I've never been in a fight for this long. This boy just won't stop. Um, he's going, and he just like laid back, and he like fell on his back, and Luffy was like, "Damn, I kind of feel bad that I took you down in front of your brothers and shit and sisters." He put his hat on Katakuri's face, and he left. He's like, so he doesn't have to cry in front of his brother and sisters, because they were really like believing in him and other things. But Luffy defeated him and stuff, and he left. And number 2 is and this is the one that everybody would be like, what? Why don't you have this at number 1? This is Luffy versus Kaido. So Luffy versus Kaido was a great fight as well. Luffy had to fight against Kaido on many occasions, basically. So when he first got to Wano, Luffy was fighting against Kaido in Gear 4, Bounce Man. He was pissed because he believed Kaido destroyed his crew. He shot a bullet, fire breath at those people, and he's like, "Oh shit, my crew's dead now because of that bitch. I'll run down and throw hands with him." And he was fighting him, bam, 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 hitting him, but kind of had durability and hockey and all this other thing. Like all of his stats were higher than Luffy at that point. Luffy didn't know that, but he still didn't care. You know, you fucked with my crew. Now I'm gonna like take your ass down right now. You know, I was gonna have a plan and other things, but I don't give a fuck. I'll fight you right now. And he was like, okay. And Kaido hit him with the Thunder Bottle, knocked him out of Gear 4 and put him in Udon Prison. In Udon Prison, Luffy learned how to use Rio Hockey. Basically, essentially, he could attack without, touching his opponent. Basically, hitting a burst of aura at the guy and damaging the opponent from the inside. Concentrating his armament hockey in a way that's more powerful, more explosive, and other stuff. Um, but it's controlled in things. You know, he learned this from the old man Higuro, inside of Udon prison, and he learned that, and then he went and he fought Kaido on top of the roof with the likes of Kid, Law, Zoro, and Killer, and they were on the rooftop for a while fighting against Kaido, and not just Kaido, but Big Mom. And Luffy was there, and he was like, "I'm fighting against Kaido. You know, you get out of here and other stuff." And Luffy was fighting up there. He got knocked off the rooftop by Kaido. He fell into the water and other things. The Heart Pirates found him and said, you're gonna go back up there and fight Kaido. You know, everybody else is like down, in the performance floor, fighting other people like Big Mom and King and Queen. Kaido's still up there fighting against his daughter, and Luffy's like, okay. Momonosuke turned into a big dragon, and Luffy went up there and he fought against Kaido again. He was fighting in Gear 4, all forms, except Tank Man. Bounce Man and Snake Man, Gear 4 time, and he was, I wouldn't say he was equal, but he was, doing a little bit of damage, but Kaido was still like, this boy at this point he was like, this boy still won't go down. Luffy has the resolve to try to beat me, but I know that I'm more powerful than him. So he smashed his face into the ground, and Luffy died at that point. But he didn't die because Zanusha was like, I hear the drums of liberation. Doom, 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 doom. And Luffy woke up laughing and other things because his son got Nika. The legend says that the guy would come and, he would put a smile on everybody's face, by being happy and the ridiculousness he does would like save the world, because he's free. He's the most free guy on the planet. And that's the devil fruit that Luffy really had. Devil fruit awakening happened and Luffy turned everything into rubber and he started bouncing around everywhere. Boom, boom, boom. Kaido was like, what the fuck is this? This guy is playing games. I didn't think his devil fruit could do shit like this. I'm still like, and they at that point they were like, relatively even. They were basically. Once Luffy hit Gear 5 timing and other things, Luffy didn't quite understand what was going on, but he was like, it's great. In this form, I can make whatever I want become a reality. And he was like, cool. And he fought against Kaido. Kaido was using, he started pulling off, like, he turned into a giant, went inside Kaido, became a hard air balloon. He did all kind of shit. Turned him into a jump rope and all kind of shit. Luffy also, pulled out lightning and threw it at him and other stuff. And then the big, move that put Kaido in the ground was the giant fish called Gum Gum Bajrang Gun. And it was bigger than the island of Onigashima. He pushed Kaido down into, the lava and essentially defeated him. And that's, what made that fight great. He freed Wano from 20 years of servitude to Kaido and Orochi, the headassery, the fucked up shit that they had them doing. Udon prison, killing off all the daimyos that didn't. He calls to Orochi. All the suffering that, like, Wano had to suffer because of that bitch. And Luffy was like, he was the one who freed him. And, there was no question after that because Luffy then became one of the four emperors of the sea, as he should, because that's Monkey D. Luffy and stuff. Like, you guys know what's up with that. If you're a One Piece fan like that. And then number one, though, and this is because I personally, Green Angel loves this. Luffy versus Rob Lucci. See, that fight's not as, animated and other things as the Kaido versus Luffy fight, right? But that's the fight that like got me interested into watching One Piece like way back in like 2011, and I was like, that shit's cool. Luffy's fighting against this guy, Rob Lucci and other things, and he's like having a brawl with an animal. So basically, Nico Robin at that point is getting hunted by the world government because she's called the double child of Ohara. They want her because she's the only person who can read the poneglyph and lead people to where the One Piece could possibly. With her dead, then they can essentially wipe that out, and then people won't be able to find what they're supposed to find as far as the One Piece goes. But Luffy, it ain't just that, but Luffy, knew Robin from, Alabasta, and he just didn't want to see her die. He's like, that girl is, she wants to be a crew member of mine. She doesn't want to die. She's just doing that to, like, keep people off the crew's dick. But I'm her captain. I don't want to see her die, so I'm gonna fight for her. And he was like, he was there for it. He went into Enies lobby and he found Rob Lucci, and Rob Lucci was like the strongest CP9 member. At that point, Luffy only had second gear, third gear, on his side, and Lucci had the six powers, and he had an extra move too besides the six powers. Um, he had the Man 6 King gun. And he fought against Luffy, and Luffy was like on par with him. Their speed was like comparable and everything. Strength was, the same and other stuff. They were basically like essentially had the same stats at that point. Luffy was like, at that point, Luffy did not like, and if you ask me, he didn't fight anybody who was like this. Crocodile, but that's it. Um, as far as hard opponents go and other things, and like, if you watch that shit, y'all, if Luffy wouldn't have beat Rob Lucci during that point, their journey would have ended. Like, Luffy would have died, and everybody else would have like died too. And Lucci even said that too during that fight. Luffy had to, like, he got hit by the Six King gun twice, and you saw Luffy, he was like all fucked up, his eyes rolled in the back of his head, and he was like, he fell to the ground almost. And Usopp was like, don't give up. We still have a journey to go, Luffy. Don't give in. We still have to, like, go after the One Piece, man. We ain't done yet. And Luffy screamed, and he was like, Jack Gatling. He was like all out too, like, bam, bam, because like this bitch was like not fucking sitting down, and then he sat the fuck down. Um, Luffy put him on his fucking ass. And I love that fight, That's why I got it at number one. But and it's funny because I could eventually switch the two, but I think I'll always have that fight at number one because it's just near and dear to my heart as a One Piece fan. But that is my top 10 Luffy fights in One Piece. Y'all, stay cool, on the corner.